I love the 4th of July. It's pretty much my favorite holiday. I love playing with fireworks, and for as long as I can remember, I've spent the 4th of July making my own fireworks by mixing various ones together. This 4th of July, however, was the first 4th of July in my life where I didn't shoot off fireworks. Or even really go out for that matter. Now, it wasn't a bad 4th of July, quite the contrary. I had a wonderful day with a new toy that I got, the HTC Vive. But the best 4th of July that I had was in 2008. It was about a year after we released our final freerunning video, Kinetic, and we got just about the whole team together to celebrate July 4th out in the desert. I even have the scar to remember it by. My mom took the 5 of us out to the desert where we could launch some less than legal fireworks. It was a fun evening where we get to shoot BB guns, Roman candles, and mortar fireworks. Upside down. I've actually had quite a bit of history playing with fireworks. Now please, anyone watching, don't be this stupid. There were plenty of times where we'd shoot at each other with them. Mostly with Roman candles because they look cool to shoot. Like laser blasts or magic spells. So while in a one-on-one, Matt and I were shooting at each other with some Roman candles. And by some obscure chance, a glowing ball slides right up my sleeve of my extended arm. Like a 1 in a million chance. It burns through the coat and leaves me with a permanent monument to my stupidity. And there had been other times where I've had close calls, but all in all, I really only burned myself that one time. 4th of July means a lot of things to me. It's a time with friends, a time to celebrate the freedoms of this country, and it's a time to blow the hell out of various objects. I've spent the last 7 or 8 years celebrating with Kyle's family on the 4th of July. Great food, great people, and they shoot off lots of fireworks. My favorite part, though, was putting on the gas mask and running through the sparks. I know, it's dumb, but it's actually quite dazzling to be surrounded by thousands of glowing, colorful sparks bouncing around you. Growing up, freedom was just about the most important thing to me. To feel like I could do what I wanted to do, to make my own choices. Video games offer an semblance to freedom, in the form of at least the illusion of choice. In a game, you could experience without consequence, explore without cost. Experience what you most likely cannot in our day-to-day lives. Things like exploring the galaxy or fighting off the undead. A question that's been going through my mind lately is, are we more free when we're older or when we're younger? I mean, certainly we have way more privileges when we're older, but many more responsibilities as well. When I was younger, I used to play games almost every day for as long as I wanted, or spend every afternoon after school going out skating or freerunning until it got dark. Now, even with the blessing of working from home several days a week, I still don't get much time for fun or creative work, and taking a few days to travel is very difficult. There's an old saying about the stages of life. When you're young, you have time and energy, but no money. When you start working, you have money and energy, but no time. Then when you get older, you have time and money, but no energy. Such is life. I think it's easy to romanticize the times of our youth, but if we really think it through, I don't think many of us would want to go back to being a child. We sometimes forget the everyday difficulties we had as a kid. Awkwardness, homework, grumpy teachers. I mean, I guess you could argue we still have those as we're older. But as much as I love my childhood, and I did have a good childhood, I would much rather have the knowledge, wisdom, and freedoms I have now. I wouldn't trade the life that I have now. I have a philosophy when it comes to living a life of meaning and purpose. Do what you love, and if necessary, do it as your job. There are many jobs that I wanted to have when I grew up. Video game developer, filmmaker, web developer, but what I really wanted was to make games, movies, and websites. A few years ago I realized I don't have to have a job in the web, game, or film industry. I just need the time and energy to do those things in my free time. In 1997, I got my first 2 video games, MechWarrior 2 and Duke Nukem. Even though I spent hours and hours playing MechWarrior, as soon as I found the map and art editor included on the disc for Duke Nukem, every minute I spent on the computer became making my own Duke Nukem mods. I started making dozens of small mods. I made my friends in my street, and you could visit all of our houses. I made spaceships from our adventures of playing Legos, and remade my favorite games and movies using assets I found online. One of my favorite games on the PlayStation was Army Men, so I spent the majority of my time on that mod. After learning a lot from that mod, I started on a completely original mod, if you can call it original, called The Apocalypse. It was a zombie mod before we had reached an oversaturation of zombies everywhere. It had a story, custom code for all the enemies, cutscenes, maps, art, and it's where I learned the most about mapping and coding. Many of the art assets were taken from other games at the time, but I felt like if I had the resources, making games is what I really wanted to do. But to really make games often requires many people. All the mods I made for Duke Nukem were never completed to my satisfaction, and were never shared except to maybe my freerunning friend Jake. Eventually, I started making short films, and I felt that this was something I was able to do on my own. So I went to school for film. I worked on several projects while I was there, both my own and other people's projects. I love being behind the camera, but more than that, I love picking the shots. The projects where I was the director of photography were the most fulfilling projects. I realized then what I liked most was creative control. To tell a story or share an experience the way that I had it in my head. Without that, operating a camera for me just became pushing buttons. But films also require many people, and usually ones very skilled in their craft. Outside of film school, there weren't that many people with free time and the resources to work on a project. I worked on many films in that time, but again, many were left unfinished. During school, I got a job at my church doing media and graphics, and part of that job was managing the website. I found that many of the things that I learned coding for Duke Nukem crossed over to JavaScript. I began more and more on web development. As I learned more, I began to develop interactive experiences and social apps. My first major project was a way to keep all my freerunning spots saved so I could share them with my team or plan a route to visit several in a day. It was a Google Maps powered, database-driven website where users could create an account and add points to a map and save their favorite freerunning, skateboarding, photography, or any other interest you had to your favorite spots. They could upload photos, make comments, and share it with others. The idea was, if you're into photography, you could find many spots in your area that are tagged with photography. Have several places where you like to film movies? Well, save them to your profile. I called it Hotspots. And on July 4th, 2012, I had a working prototype that I started to share with some friends and family. Other than having many features I still wanted to introduce, it worked. And I started sharing it. The more I learned, the more I realized the website's inefficiencies and lacked security. I worked on several other projects and a few years later I went back to Hotspots and started from scratch, this time focusing on security and efficiency. It stands now almost in a usable state, still trying to figure out what works best with the idea. I have a list of web projects that I have started over the years that all work together with Hotspots. Hopefully someday I can realize them, but like all my creative passions and my freerunning, I find it hard to work on these without a team. It's probably one of the biggest lessons I have learned this year thus far. Like that cheesy saying, you need teamwork to make the ridiculously big, overreaching project work. Or something like that. As of this last year, nearly all my focus has been on this video project. I have found for myself that working on one project at a time is really the way to go. The problem I've experienced just about my whole life, however, was drifting wherever my passions led me. From film to web development to game creation. Even though I was constantly creating, in the end, I had nothing to show for it. And something I've come to realize is, you don't just need a project, you need a product. Something complete at the end of your work. Now it's fair to say, nothing is ever truly done, but as Leonardo da Vinci said, art is never finished, only abandoned. It's important to have some kind of finish line for a project, otherwise you end up with several dozen websites, all in various stages of development, never able to be experienced, because it's just not in a usable state. The only projects I ever feel like I satisfactorily completed were my freerunning projects. I worked on them, I completed them, I shared them. I was happy with what I had made at the time, and I can now always go back and view it. My freerunning videos and performances allowed me to express my desire for creative control. No matter what it is, I always feel the need to create. I think it's important to find that creative spark to work on a project. I believe everyone has a creative spark. It may not be drawing, or writing, or playing music, but there's something that excites you creatively. Find what it is and do it. It could be making games with your friends, or making play equipment for your kids. Point is, never stop creating.